joking. You're joking. I can't believe my ears. Will someone shut this fella? I'm drowning in my tears. It's funny. I'm laughing. You really are too much. And now, with your permission, I'm going to do my stuff. I'm going to do the best I can. Oh, the sound of rolling dice to me is music in the air. Oh, I'm a gambling boogeyman. Although I don't play fair, I must admit it's much more fun with lines on the line. Not mine, of course, but yours, old boy. Now that'll be just fine. You weren't even born 20 years ago. Neither was I. No, actually, I was 10 years old when I did the voice of it. Isn't that an achievement for a 10-year-old to be able to sound like that? But I'm so glad to be here with you today. By the way, that poem was Tim Burton's original poem on which the film was based. And the narration was done by the master of horror, one of them at least, Mr. Christopher Lee. And it's available on the Blu-ray that's coming out, of course. So you can go get it. There's a lot of great new extras on it, so it'll be terrific to have it. Thanks! Why not? A little fashion statement, right? A little looky fashion. Absolutely. You know, it really is amazing. 20 years later to be standing here. When I did the original work on the film, I had absolutely no idea that it would catch on like it did. And we all know when it first came out, it did well. But over the years, it has become, I think it's safe to say, a classic now, right? Yeah. And that is all because of all of you. You have made that happen, absolutely. Now, I want you to help me welcome to the stage tonight a film historian. He's the creator of the popular podcast Commentary Track, and he's the author of Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, the film, the art, the vision. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Frank Thompson. Yeah. Well, we have a video of our illustrious director, Henry Selick, telling us what The Nightmare Before Christmas means to him. Let's take a look at that. It's going to appear right before.
I think there's sort of a powerful primal story at the center. This collision of holidays, you know, collision of colors, collision of cultures. I think the songs are amazing. The lead characters are, I think, memorable. And when we made the film, we were never worried about it. We just wanted to make the best film we can, but we weren't calculating. We weren't thinking, oh, we should do this because that would make it more successful. We just were happy to have that chance to bring Tim's story to life. And I don't know. It's I think the handmade quality of the stop motion is a reason for its success. But it's ultimately a mystery to all of us.
Woo. Is it a mystery to you too? Not quite. Well, you know, it's a funny thing. When I didn't even realize the cult status that the film had achieved well into, I'd say probably 6 or 7 years after the opening. And I was doing a show with Reprise here in LA, Three Penny Opera, and one of the crew guys, a young guy, probably around 22 or so, he came up to me and he said, "There's a rumor going around that you're the voice of Oogie Boogie." I said, "Why? Who wants to, somebody going to shoot me or something? What do they want to help with?" And he said, "Well, we go to a club every Friday night. This club, before it closes, they play the opening of the movie, and at the very last, before they turn on those rude, you know, walk of shame lights, and they play the Oogie Boogie song." That's when I became aware of this whole other cultural thing that had happened. What would you say Nightmare Before Christmas what impact has it made on our culture?
I think it made I think I can speak to the difference it's made in movies. I think it helped animated films, at least animated feature films, grow up a little bit. Because although kids certainly love Nightmare Before Christmas, you wouldn't call it a kid's movie. Everybody likes it, any age. I know people who have watched it since they were little, but I know people who were adults when it came out and they've always loved it. So I think a lot of the movies that have come out since that have been, you know, you think of Up or WALL-E or
Exactly.
Monsters, Inc. or any of these that have The Incredibles, they have serious themes in a way and really touching human characters. And I mean human in quotes,
Yeah,
because they're often not humans.
Yeah.
But, and I think The Nightmare Before Christmas had a lot to do with
I
getting
agree.
it there.
I think it gave permission to include other subject matter in what would have been a children's story previous to that time. I remember going to Tokyo a few years ago when connected again with Nightmare Before Christmas. And it was another one of those discoveries because I didn't realize it was an international thing that had happened, right? And we went to Tokyo Disneyland, and it was, I think, the first year they were rolling out the sort of Halloween overlay there in the park. And Halloween wasn't really a holiday in Tokyo, but now it is because of Nightmare Before Christmas. How about that? Yeah. And there were people there dressed in amazing costumes that were done in immaculate detail. It was amazing. So I thought about how, like you're saying, when you went to the Haunted Mansion, I went once somewhere along the way, I saw it for the first time. And it dawned on me that actually the film made an impact on the Disney consciousness,
Sure
the
did.
park.
I was just thinking about that time, the first time we went, which must have been 1999 or 2000,
Right.
something like that. And somebody called me from Disney and they said, would you moderate a panel with Henry Selick and a couple of the animators down at Disneyland? And I pictured it being like in a conference room and, you know, something like that. And we get down there in this amphitheater, and there's got to be 1,500 people in the audience. There's a full orchestra. There are like 30 dancers in nightmare costumes coming out and dancing around, and they brought me out in a sleigh. Made me sit in this big throne where lights kept going on and off. And I thought, wow,
didn't know you were in there.
No, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, I think, as we're saying, how that overlay has happened there, you know. How many of you have been to the park and seen the Haunted Mansion? Well, then you know all about it. Well, you're going to love what's coming up next. We have a video clip talking about the overlay and how they put the Nightmare Before Christmas into what was already the Haunted Mansion. Let's take a look.
Welcome to my Christmas delight.
Artistically, it was a big challenge because you have two opposing forces. You have the Haunted Mansion, which is a very classic design, and then you have the Nightmare style.
Spooky clothes is coming at you.
We're not trying to recreate the movie, we're inspired by the movie, so we're taking various little pieces of it and then sticking it into the Haunted Mansion as though Jack has flown in, landed on the attraction, and decorated the place in his Halloween/Christmas style.
I like this Christmas thing.
The scene that was the most inspiring was making Christmas, because we were kind of doing the same thing. Going into some place that didn't really have Christmas in it and putting these tweaked ideas all into it.
You're taking something that has a 40-year lifespan that people love, they come right in every day, and now we've transformed it. And I was terrified. And I went in with a group of people, and the show starts, and by the time they hit the floor, Big Jack had appeared, they were cheering.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Even the filmmaker's reaction was wonderful. Tim Burton went through it and loved it. And then he went to the merchandise stand and bought all the merchandise that was available.
Eureka!
And when you went and listened to people on the outside as they exited, they were like, oh my God, let's do it again. And from that moment, you knew that something special. You had taken something that they knew and brought it to life in a whole new way.
Mr. Rick Einrichs.
So yes, it's odd that Nightmare was made at all, particularly by a studio like Disney at the time. Now, Disney's gone through a lot of evolution since then as well. But just to go in the Wayback Machine right now, I wanted to share with you where we went to school. This is CalArts, Avant-Garde Arts College, 45 minutes from LA. This is where a lot of us came from, actually came through there. The Disney animation program, character animation program, was kind of a nerdy sore thumb that's sticking out of this very progressive school. Interestingly, some of the people who were actually in the program spent a lot of time drawing Bambis, drawing other things. And it was a great opportunity, though, to meet people. This is my caricature of Joe Ranft, who was sitting across from me at the time. Joe, as I'll explain, was a very important contributor to the film. At the end of the school year, there was an event which was sort of like a big, almost like a Hunger Games event, in which everybody's animated film from that year was brought up, and you could watch your year's labor on spool and see what people's reaction to it was. It was pretty gut-wrenching for me. But my biggest memory of it, interestingly, was not my own film, but it was of Tim Burton's film, Stalk of the Celery Monster. There's no celery monster, but you like the name. What was interesting about it was that, while most of us were struggling with technical mastery of animation, Tim seemed to leap right across it and was already into entertaining audiences.
Now, I will ready to begin.
For those of us who went to the studio that summer, we were very enthusiastic. It tended to wane a little bit after we really stepped up to the task of animating a feature-length film, a very traditional one. And it was funny because we were young and, full of beans, and it felt like we'd been trained to be creative by Disney, and we weren't really being given the chance to be creative. We were sort of assigned to the assembly line, and some of us felt like the boys in Pinocchio who are lured into playland and turned into donkeys. So it was just a very interesting time for us. We made films.
I am the most powerful force in the universe, and you are here to do my bidding. You know, it's a funny thing that you are nothing more than a zombie here to do my bidding. I am putting you under my super secret hypnosis with this healthy melody. Hey, put me down, you are under my hypnosis. Come on,
That was Joe Ranft as IQ and Tim Burton as the most powerful force in the universe. Or as we call it now, the film director. But it's another story. What was interesting about Tim at Disney at this time was the fact that many of the people who were sort of heading of the studio at the time were a little ambivalent about his work, not finding it fitting their idea of what the Disney mold should be. I remember going into Tim's office, and he'd have all these amazing pictures up on the wall that he'd done, this whole world that he'd created. Really, really truly amazing, and all of our colleagues felt the same way about it. But seemingly the producers didn't. So I decided to help them see the light by sculpting some of his work in 3D, and thereby show that, in fact, it could be very dimensional. At that point, they decided that his work just simply wasn't Disney enough to be in one of their films. And I think that a lot of that is the fact that they were very stuck on the idea of trying to find out what Walt would have wanted if he was still alive. And maybe they'd forgotten that Walt himself and his animators were very innovative back before Disney became a big corporate name. Anyway, I realized what was appealing to me about Tim's work, and a lot of it is the fact that he's got this amazing, elegant line that that tends to bring the eye in and tell a story about the environments and the characters very clearly. He communicates beautifully. He uses shape, he uses repetitive linear patterns. He uses composition to take the eye on a journey, as I say. Sometimes that journey tells you a story about a character, and sometimes you discover things under the surface that you don't want to. In Tim's world, what seems safe is not often. But what is monstrous is oftentimes delightful in Tim's work. In fact, I think it's fair to say that for much of Tim's work, there's a real heart at the core of the monstrous. Real, almost a humanity at the core. Even monsters have feelings in Tim's world. Even small monsters can have very big feelings, in fact. And the thing about Tim's characters is they can't hide who they are. Tim had this great idea, he was always coming up with them, for a book, storybook idea about a boy who fantasizes and is obsessed with the films and characters of Vincent Price. I had done a lot of stop motion. I have interest in animation and sculpture, and I thought it'd make a great stop motion film. So we talked to the head of production at the studio. We went right over the head of the animation department.
Tim and I have been working on developing some live action as well as animation projects at Disney. We've developed this guy for a Halloween-oriented project, which Tim designed the characters for and conceptualized.
Well, basically, the way that we work is that I'll do a drawing, something like this, and from that, Rick will make a sculpture of it, like this, and then from there it would be built into a live set.
Another project that Tim and I worked on together was an experiment with stop-motion animation for which I took Tim's designs and created puppets and three-dimensional sets.
Vincent Malloy is 7 years old. He's always polite and does what he's told.
It's a 6-minute short called Vincent, about a young boy who longs to be just like Vincent Price.
Long about this time, Tim came up with another great idea. It was for a TV special, half hour. It was going to sort of feel like The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, or let's say Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Which, you know, the arrogance of youth, that we could dream to go in the footsteps of those giants. He showed me his drawing of a smiling skeleton with a ghost dog. I developed it as a model, and the fact that with a few bold strokes, he essentially laid out this entire world for me, which is kind of what he always does. He just seems to spring hidden from his mind like that. We took that opportunity to take it to, because the project had started at Disney, they owned it, and we were taken to meetings with networks to sell it. And unfortunately, nobody bit on it. It was a little too weird, a little too arcane technique, and so it kind of went away. Life went on. It's okay. We got a studio together. We left Disney for a while. We continued to collaborate and do projects together. We were exploring the idea of combining live action with stop motion animation. We were exploring visual design as a character, an important one for a film. Somewhere along the line, Tim's work began attracting attention, and his own reputation started to gain traction. And Disney, at some point after Tim had directed 4 feature films, each one more successful than the last, was looking for something to attract Tim back into the fold with. I bet you can guess what that might be. So the second coming of Nightmare Before Christmas. This is about 8-10 years later, as a matter of fact. The idea was to do this in stop motion as a feature this time. We were in pre-production on Batman Returns, and it just seemed like it would be very difficult to do it justice. So I suggested to Tim that we contact our very talented colleague and friend Henry Selick, and he leapt at that. Henry was up in the Bay Area. He had a group of animators that he was working with, and very talented, extraordinary artists up there. And it seemed like the right way to do it.
And there's one more surprise on video for you before we go. We'll see you next time. Have a great time.
I'd like to say hello to everyone who's here for the 20th anniversary of Nightmare Before Christmas at the El Capitan Theater. I'm really sorry I can't be with you tonight. Right now, I'm in Europe on a worldwide tour, performing the music that I've done with Tim Burton for 27 years. I hope to see you all at our Halloween shows here in Los Angeles.
Hello, I'm Tim Burton. Welcome to the 200th anniversary screening of The Nightmare Before Christmas, newly enhanced and spine-tingling 5th dimension. I'm very sorry I can't join you for this special event at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood, California. Well, I hope you enjoy the show and that you have a happy Halloween, and while you're at it, a very Merry Christmas too.
Has an armature inside it, which is basically a ball and socket, which it enables you to move a puppet like these. We usually do this